The dust hung thick in the air of Cheyenne, Wyoming, on that August morning in 1878, when Owen Quinn first saw Catherine Dalton standing on the train platform with eyes that looked as lifeless as stone. She clutched a worn leather bag against her chest, her dark hair pinned severely back, her black dress marking her as a widow despite her youth of 23 years. Owen had been passing through on his way to deliver horses to the cavalry fort, and something about the way she stood there, utterly alone and utterly defeated, made him stop his mare right there in the middle of the dusty street. He dismounted slowly, tying his horse to the rail outside the general store, watching as the woman turned to survey the town with an expression that suggested she had arrived at the end of the world rather than a bustling Wyoming settlement. Owen was 26, tall and weathered from years of working ranches from Texas to Montana, and he prided himself on reading people well. This woman had been broken by something terrible, that much was certain. The way she moved was mechanical, like someone going through motions without truly being present in her own body. Catherine walked toward the hotel with measured steps, her boots leaving small prints in the dust that covered everything in Cheyenne during the dry season. Owen found himself following at a distance, then cursed himself for being a fool. What business was it of his if some widow wanted to come to Wyoming? Plenty of people came west to escape their pasts. Still, something gnawed at him as he watched her disappear into the hotel lobby. He had seen that look before, in the eyes of men who had lost everything in the war, men who walked and talked but were already dead inside. The next morning, Owen was loading supplies onto his wagon outside the mercantile when he saw her again. She was standing on the hotel porch, staring at the mountains in the distance with that same hollow expression. The morning sun caught her face, illuminating the fine lines of exhaustion around her eyes and mouth. She could not have been sleeping well. Owen knew he should mind his own business, but before he could stop himself, he was crossing the street. "Morning, madam," he said, removing his hat. "Name is Owen Quinn. I help run a horse ranch about 10 miles north of town. I could not help but notice you arrived yesterday on the afternoon train." Catherine turned to look at him, and up close, the emptiness in her eyes was even more striking. They were a pale blue that should have been beautiful but instead seemed faded and distant. "Catherine Dalton," she said quietly. Her voice was cultured Eastern. "I am looking for work." "What kind of work?" Owen asked, genuinely curious. Most women who came west alone either had family waiting or were working girls, and Catherine Dalton did not seem to fit either category. "Any kind," she replied, and there was a note of desperation beneath the flatness of her tone. "I can read and write, I can keep accounts, I can cook and clean. I taught school in Philadelphia before." She trailed off, her gaze drifting back to the mountains. Owen studied her for a moment. "The ranch where I work, we have been needing someone to handle the books and help with meals for the hands. The owner, Mr. Patterson, is getting on in years, and his wife passed last winter. He has been struggling to keep everything organized. It would not be fancy work, but room and board would be included along with fair wages." For the first time, something flickered in Catherine's eyes, though it was more relief than hope. "I would be grateful for the opportunity to speak with him. He is actually in town today, meeting with the bank. If you can wait about an hour, I can introduce you." Catherine nodded, and Owen found himself offering to buy her breakfast at the restaurant next to the hotel. She accepted with the same mechanical politeness, and as they sat across from each other in the small establishment, Owen tried to make conversation. He learned that she was from Philadelphia, that she had been widowed 6 months ago, and that she had no family left. What he could not learn was what had put that dead look in her eyes, What had driven her to come alone to a rough Wyoming town where she knew no one? When Mr. Patterson arrived, a grizzled man of 60 with a weathered face and kind eyes, he took to Catherine immediately. "I appreciate someone who is direct about needing work," he said. "Too many people these days want to put on airs. If you can keep ledgers straight and make sure my ranch hands get fed decent meals, the job is yours. I cannot pay much, but like Owen said, room and board are included, and you would have your own cabin on the property." Catherine accepted without hesitation, and by that afternoon she was sitting beside Owen in the wagon as they rode out to the Patterson ranch. The landscape stretched endlessly around them, golden grasslands broken by rocky outcroppings and distant mountain ranges. Owen tried pointing out various landmarks, but Catherine barely seemed to register his words. She sat straight-backed and silent, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on nothing. The Patterson Ranch was a sprawling operation with a main house, several outbuildings, corrals, and 3 small cabins for the workers. Mr. Patterson showed Catherine to the smallest cabin, which had belonged to his late wife's sister years ago. It was simple but clean, with a bed, a stove, a table, and a rocking chair. Catherine thanked him with the same mechanical politeness and began unpacking her single bag. Over the following weeks, Owen found himself watching Catherine more than he should have. She performed her duties efficiently, keeping the books with meticulous accuracy and preparing meals that were simple but well made. The ranch hands appreciated having hot food at regular times, and Mr. Patterson was relieved to have someone handling the paperwork. But Catherine remained distant and hollow, going through the motions of living without any apparent feeling. Owen worked primarily with the horses, breaking and training them for sale to the cavalry and to other ranchers. It was work he loved, work that required patience and understanding. He would spend hours with a single horse, learning its personality and gaining its trust. One afternoon in late September, as he worked with a particularly skittish mare in the corral, he noticed Catherine standing by the fence watching. It was the first time she had shown interest in anything beyond her assigned duties. He walked over, wiping sweat from his forehead. "She is a beauty, is she not? Wild, caught up in the northern territories. Scared of everything right now, but there is intelligence in her eyes. She will come around." Catherine looked at the mare, then at Owen. "How do you know she will?" "Because she wants to," Owen said. "Animals want to connect, want to trust. They just need time and patience, especially if they have been hurt or scared." Something shifted in Catherine's expression, a tiny crack in the facade. What if they have been hurt too badly? What if they cannot come back from it? Owen met her eyes steadily. "Then you give them more time. You do not give up on them. Every living thing has the capacity to heal if given the chance and the right circumstances." Catherine looked away, back at the mare. "I am not sure that is true." "I have seen it happen more times than I can count," Owen said gently. "With horses, anyway. I reckon it works with people too." She did not respond, but the next day she was back at the corral watching as Owen worked, and the day after that. Soon it became a regular pattern. When her afternoon duties were finished, Catherine would come stand by the fence and watch Owen with the horses. She rarely spoke, but her presence became a constant that Owen found himself looking forward to. As autumn deepened, and the aspens turned gold in the mountains, Owen began talking to Catherine as he worked, explaining what he was doing and why. He told her about reading a horse's body language, about the importance of consistency and gentleness, about earning trust rather than demanding obedience. Catherine listened, and gradually, very gradually, she began asking questions. "Why do you always approach from the side?" she asked one afternoon as Owen slowly moved toward a young stallion. Horses are prey animals, Owen explained. They have eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for predators. Coming straight at them feels like an attack. From the side, they can see you clearly and do not feel threatened. So you accommodate their nature rather than trying to force them to change it, Catherine said thoughtfully. Exactly. You work with what they are, not against it. October brought the first real cold, and Owen noticed Catherine starting to linger after dinner, helping clean up in the main house kitchen. Mr. Patterson would sit by the fire with his pipe, and the three of them would talk about the day's work, the horses, the coming winter preparations. Catherine began contributing more to these conversations, offering observations about the ranch finances or asking about the history of the property. Her voice remained quiet, but there was slightly more animation to it than there had been. One evening, as Catherine washed dishes and Owen dried them, Mr. Patterson dozed off in his chair. Owen found himself alone with Catherine in the warm kitchen, the only sounds the clinking of plates and the crackling of the fire. "You are good at this work," Catherine said suddenly. "With the horses, I can see that you genuinely care about them." "They are honest," Owen replied. "A horse will not lie to you about what it is feeling. If you pay attention, they tell you everything you need to know." "I wish people were that honest," Catherine said, her hands pausing in the wash water. "Some are," Owen said carefully, "if you give them the chance." Catherine resumed washing. "My husband was not." It was the first time she had mentioned her husband beyond acknowledging that she was widowed. Owen did not push, just kept drying dishes and waiting. "He was a banker in Philadelphia," Catherine continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Successful, respected. We married when I was 19. For the first year, everything seemed perfect. Then I began noticing discrepancies in our household accounts. Money missing, strange meetings at odd hours. When I asked about it, he became angry." She paused, her hands trembling slightly in the water. "The anger got worse. He drank. He began coming home in rages about business problems, about losses. I learned to stay quiet, to make myself small, to never question anything." Owen felt a knot forming in his chest but kept his voice calm. "That must have been terrifying." "I became very good at being invisible," Catherine said. "At having no opinions, no feelings. It was safer that way. Then one night last February he came home later than usual. I heard him stumbling in the hallway, heard him fall. When I went to check on him, he was dead. Heart failure, the doctor said. The drink had finally killed him." She pulled her hands from the water and dried them on her apron. "That is when I discovered the truth. He had been embezzling from the bank for years. We had no money. Everything was gone, and worse, there were debts. Enormous debts. The bank took our house, our possessions, everything. His colleagues, our supposed friends, they all turned away. Some blamed me, said I must have known, said I must have been involved. But you were not," Owen said firmly. "No, but it did not matter. I had nothing left, no money, no home, no reputation. My parents died when I was 17, and I have no siblings. The only choice I had was to come west and start over somewhere no one knew the Dalton name." She finally looked at him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "But the problem is, I feel like there is nothing left of me to start over with. Those years with him, they hollowed me out. I do not remember what it feels like to want something, to care about something, to be alive instead of just existing." Owen set down the dish towel and moved closer, though he did not touch her. "You are still here. That takes strength." "It takes cowardice," Catherine said bitterly. "I was too afraid to stay and too afraid to do anything else but run." "You survived," Owen said, "and survival is not cowardice. It is courage. You got on a train alone and came to a place where you had no guarantees of anything. You found work and you have been doing it well. You are rebuilding, even if you cannot see it yet." A single tear slipped down Catherine's cheek, the first real emotion Owen had seen break through her mask. "I do not know how to rebuild." "One day at a time," Owen said softly. "One moment at a time. Like gentling a horse, you cannot rush it, you just keep showing up." Catherine wiped the tear away quickly. "Thank you for listening. I should not have burdened you with all of that." "It is no burden," Owen assured her. "And Catherine, your eyes might feel dead to you right now, but I have been watching them. There is still life there, even if you cannot feel it yet. I see it flickering when you watch the horses, when you ask questions, when you let yourself be curious about something. It is coming back." She looked at him with an expression that was equal parts hope and fear, then excused herself to return to her cabin. Owen watched her go, feeling the weight of everything she had shared. He understood now why she had seemed so broken, why every movement appeared to require such effort. She had been systematically destroyed by someone who should have protected her, and she was trying to piece herself back together from fragments. The next morning, Owen found Catherine at the corral before breakfast, watching the skittish mare he had been working with. He joined her at the fence. "Would you like to help?" he asked. Catherine looked uncertain. "I do not know anything about horses. I will teach you if you want to learn." She hesitated, then nodded. Owen opened the gate and led her into the corral, showing her how to move slowly and calmly, how to keep her body language relaxed and non-threatening. The mare watched them from across the space, ears forward with interest but feet ready to flee. "Just stand here with me," Owen said quietly. "Let her get used to your presence. Do not try to approach her. Let her come to us if she wants to." They stood together in the morning sun, not moving, barely speaking. After what felt like an eternity, the mare took a tentative step toward them, then another. Catherine's breath caught, and Owen could feel the tension in her body. "Stay relaxed," he murmured. "You are doing perfectly." The mare came closer, stretching her neck to sniff the air around them. Catherine remained still, and Owen could see the wonder beginning to dawn on her face as the horse took another step, then another, until she was close enough to touch. "Hold out your hand, palm flat, and let her sniff you," Owen instructed. Catherine did, moving with careful slowness. The mare's soft nose touched her palm, velvet and warm. Catherine's face transformed, a genuine smile breaking through for the first time since Owen had known her. It was small and fragile, but it was real. "She trusts you," Owen said, and he meant more than just the horse. From that day forward, Catherine spent every spare moment with the horses. Owen taught her everything he knew, and she proved to be a natural. She had a gentleness and patience that the animals responded to, and Owen realized that in caring for them, she was learning to care for herself again. The work gave her purpose beyond mere survival. November brought snow to the high country, though Cheyenne itself remained mostly clear. The ranch prepared for winter, and everyone worked longer hours to ensure the livestock would be well provisioned. Owen and Catherine often found themselves working side by side, whether mending fence lines, moving hay, or checking on the horses in the far pastures. One cold afternoon, as they rode back from checking the northern boundary, Catherine's horse stumbled on icy ground. She kept her seat, but the incident startled her. Owen pulled his horse alongside hers. "You all right?" "Yes," Catherine said, but her hands were shaking as she held the reins. "I am sorry, I am being foolish." "You are not being foolish, you got scared, that is natural." "I hate being scared all the time," Catherine said, and there was sudden fire in her voice. "I hate that I jump at loud noises, that I flinch when people move too quickly near me, that I cannot trust my own judgment anymore because I was so wrong about him. I hate what he did to me, what he turned me into." "Then be angry about it," Owen said. "Anger is better than emptiness. Anger means you are feeling something real." Catherine looked at him, her eyes blazing with an emotion that was finally blessedly alive. "I am angry. I am furious. He took years of my life and twisted them into something horrible, and then he died and left me with the consequences of his choices. And I am angry at myself for letting it happen, for being so blind and so weak." "You were not weak," Owen said fiercely. "You were trapped. There is a difference." "How do you know?" Catherine demanded. "How do you know I did not just let it happen because I was too cowardly to leave?" "Because you are here now," Owen said. "Because when you finally had a choice, you chose to survive. You chose to leave everything familiar and start over. That is not cowardice. That is bravery." Catherine's anger crumbled into tears, and she covered her face with her gloved hands. Owen dismounted quickly and helped her down from her horse, and when she collapsed against him, sobbing, he wrapped his arms around her and let her cry. They stood in the cold November wind, on an empty stretch of Wyoming grassland, and Catherine wept for everything she had lost and everything that had been taken from her. When the tears finally subsided, she pulled back, embarrassed. "I am sorry." "I should not have. Stop apologizing," Owen said gently. "You needed to cry. You needed to let it out. There is no shame in that." Catherine looked up at him, and for the first time he saw her truly looking at him, seeing him as more than just a kind stranger or a patient teacher. "You have been so good to me, Owen. I do not understand why." "Because I care about you," Owen said simply. "I started caring the moment I saw you on that train platform, looking like you had lost everything worth living for. And I have watched you fighting your way back to life, inch by inch, and it has been the most beautiful thing I have ever witnessed." "Beautiful," Catherine laughed, but it was not bitter. "I have been a broken mess." "Healing is beautiful," Owen said. "Surviving is beautiful." "You are beautiful, Catherine, not despite what you have been through, but because you have been through it and you are still here." She searched his face, looking for dishonesty or ulterior motives, but Owen met her gaze steadily. After a long moment, she said quietly, "I am afraid." "Of what?" "Of feeling something for someone again, of being wrong again, of giving someone power to hurt me again." "I cannot promise you will never be hurt again," Owen said honestly, "but I can promise I will never deliberately hurt you. I can promise that if you give me your trust, I will guard it like the precious thing it is. I can promise that I see you, Catherine, the real you beneath all the pain, and I want to know her. I want to help her come back fully." Catherine's eyes, those pale blue eyes that had been so dead and hollow, were alive now with tears and fear and the faintest glimmer of hope. "I do not know if I remember how to be that person." "Then we will figure it out together," Owen said. "No rushing, no pressure. Just time and patience, like gentling a wild horse." She smiled through her tears. "Am I the wild horse in this metaphor?" "We both are," Owen said with a grin. "Life makes wild things of all of us." They rode back to the ranch in comfortable silence, something fundamental having shifted between them. That evening, as they prepared dinner together in the main house kitchen, their hands brushed as they worked, and neither pulled away. Mr. Patterson watched them with knowing eyes but said nothing, just smiled into his pipe smoke. December brought true winter to Wyoming. Snow piled high around the ranch buildings, and the work became focused on keeping the animals fed and warm. Owen and Catherine spent long hours together in the stables and barns, their conversations ranging from the practical to the philosophical. Catherine talked more about her past now, but not with the dead voice of trauma. Instead, she spoke with the perspective of someone processing and integrating difficult experiences. "I think I always knew something was wrong," she said one afternoon as they groomed horses together. "But I had been taught that a wife supports her husband, trusts her husband, defers to her husband. My mother died when I was so young, and I had no one to teach me that those things should not mean accepting abuse or lies. I thought suffering in silence was what strong women did. Strength is knowing when to leave, not staying in something that destroys you, Owen said. I know that now, Catherine agreed. But I did not know it then. Or maybe I did and I was too afraid to act on it. I will probably spend the rest of my life wondering. Or you could spend the rest of your life moving forward instead of looking back, Owen suggested gently. Catherine paused in her brushing and looked at him. Is that what you do? I try, Owen said. I have my own past, my own regrets. I spent 3 years drifting after the war, unable to settle anywhere, unable to connect with anyone. I was running from things I had seen and done, things that haunted me. It was not until I found this work, working with horses, that I started to feel human again. Animals do not judge you for your past. They only care about who you are in the present moment. What made you stop running? Catherine asked. Owen met her eyes. I realized running was not the same as healing. And healing required staying in one place long enough to put down roots, even if it was scary. Is it still scary? Sometimes, Owen admitted, but less so every day, and especially less so since you arrived. Catherine blushed, something Owen had never seen her do before. The color in her cheeks made her eyes brighter, more alive. You make me feel like myself again, she said softly. Or like someone new, someone better than who I was. I cannot quite decide which. Maybe both, Owen said. Maybe you are becoming who you always should have been, without all the fear and pain weighing you down. Christmas came with a heavy snowstorm that trapped everyone at the ranch for 3 days. The hands played cards in the bunkhouse, Mr. Patterson read by the fire, and Owen and Catherine found themselves spending hours talking in the kitchen, cooking elaborate meals just to pass the time. They told each other stories from their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Catherine laughed at Owen's tale of being thrown from his first horse and landing in a pig pen, a genuine, unguarded laugh that filled the warm kitchen like music. On Christmas evening, after dinner, Owen pulled a small package from his pocket. I made this for you, he said, suddenly shy. Catherine unwrapped it carefully to find a small wooden horse, no bigger than her palm, carved with exquisite detail. The horse's head was turned slightly, ears forward, capturing that moment of curiosity and trust. Owen, Catherine breathed. This is beautiful. It is the mare, Owen said. The one you helped gentle, the one you first smiled for. I wanted you to have something to remind you of that moment, of the day you started coming back. Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but they were good tears. I do not have anything to give you. You have given me everything, Owen said. You have given me someone to care for, someone to share my days with, someone who understands what it means to heal. You have no idea what a gift that is. Catherine set the carved horse carefully on the table and moved closer to Owen. They had not touched beyond accidental brushes and that one embrace when she had cried, but now she reached for his hand deliberately. I am falling in love with you, she said, her voice trembling. I did not think I could ever feel this way again, and it terrifies me, but I am. Owen's heart hammered in his chest. I fell in love with you the day I saw you on that train platform. I have just been waiting for you to find your way back to yourself so I could tell you. I am not all the way back yet, Catherine warned. There are still days when everything feels dark and hopeless, still moments when I flinch at shadows. I know, Owen said, and I will be here for those days and those moments, for all of them if you will let me. Catherine reached up and touched his face with tentative fingers, tracing the line of his jaw as if memorizing it. I have been so afraid to want anything because wanting things led to such terrible pain. But I want this. I want you. I want to see where this goes. Owen turned his head to kiss her palm. Then gently, Giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her lips. It was soft and sweet and full of promise, and when Catherine kissed him back, her arms coming up to wrap around his neck, Owen felt something settle into place in his chest. This was right. This was what he had been waiting for without knowing he was waiting. When they finally pulled apart, Catherine was smiling, a full, radiant smile that transformed her entire face. Her eyes, those beautiful pale blue eyes, were sparkling with life and joy and love. The spark had returned, slowly and carefully, nurtured back to brightness by time and patience and genuine care. January brought bitter cold but clear skies. Owen and Catherine became inseparable, though they were careful to maintain propriety for Mr. Patterson's sake. They talked about the future now, making plans. Owen wanted to start his own ranch eventually, breeding and training horses. Catherine wanted to help, to be a full partner in the venture. They talked about where they might settle, what kind of house they would build, how many horses they would start with. "What about children?" Catherine asked one evening as they walked through the snowy pastures, checking the fence lines. "I would like children," Owen said carefully. "But only if you do. I know your first marriage was different," Catherine finished firmly. "Completely different. Yes, Owen, I want children. I want a life with you, a full life with all the joy and messiness that entails. I want everything I thought I would never have." By February, they knew they wanted to marry. Owen asked Mr. Patterson for his blessing, which the old rancher gave with enthusiasm. "I have been watching you two dancing around each other for months," he said with a laugh. "About time you made it official. And I hope you will stay on for a while even after you are married. I have gotten used to having you both around." They married in Cheyenne on a bright March morning in 1879. It was a simple ceremony at the church with Mr. Patterson and a few of the ranch hands as witnesses. Catherine wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, and she carried wildflowers that Owen had searched the Wyoming hillsides to find. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Owen kissed his bride, Catherine's eyes were shining with tears of joy. They spent their wedding night in the hotel in Cheyenne, a luxury they could barely afford but deemed worth it for the privacy and celebration. Catherine was nervous, afraid that the intimacy would trigger memories of her first marriage, but Owen was patient and gentle, and when they came together, it was with love and trust and mutual desire. Afterward, Catherine lay in Owen's arms and wept, but they were tears of release and healing. "I never knew it could be like that," she whispered. "I never knew it could be about love instead of control." "Everything is different now," Owen promised. "We build our life together on our terms with respect and love as the foundation." They returned to the Patterson ranch and continued their work, now as husband and wife. They saved every penny, planning for their future. By summer, they had found a piece of land about 15 miles northwest of Cheyenne, near the Laramie Mountains. It had good water, good grazing, and enough space to build the horse ranch they dreamed of. Mr. Patterson loaned them money for the initial stock, which Owen insisted they would pay back with interest. "Consider it a wedding gift and an investment," Mr. Patterson said. "I have watched you work, Owen, and I know you will be successful. And Catherine, you have become like a daughter to me. I want to help you both start your life together properly." Building their ranch was back-breaking work. Owen and Catherine, with help from hired hands and neighboring ranchers, constructed a small house, a barn, and corrals. They purchased their first breeding horses and began the careful work of developing bloodlines known for intelligence and temperament. Catherine handled all the business aspects, keeping meticulous records and managing their finances with skill honed from her teaching days and sharpened by determination never to be financially helpless again. Their first year was challenging. Money was tight, the work was exhausting, and there were setbacks, including a sick horse and a broken fence that let 3 valuable animals escape. But through it all, Owen and Catherine worked side by side, supporting each other through frustrations and celebrating small victories. Their love deepened with every shared sunrise, every problem solved together, every evening spent planning their future. In the spring of 1880, Catherine discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified at first, afraid that childbirth would be dangerous, afraid that she would not be a good mother given her own lack of maternal guidance. But Owen's steady confidence in her, and her own growing sense of self-worth, helped calm her fears. "You are the strongest person I know," Owen told her. "You survived hell and came out the other side. You can absolutely do this." Their son was born on a cold November morning in 1880. They named him James, after Owen's father who had died when Owen was young. Catherine's labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Owen feared he would lose her, but she fought through with the same determination she had shown in rebuilding her life. When the midwife finally placed the squalling baby in Catherine's arms, and Owen saw his wife look at their son with such overwhelming love, he knew that every hard moment had been worth it. Motherhood transformed Catherine in ways Owen had not anticipated. She was fierce in her love for James, protective but not smothering, determined to raise him with the values of respect and kindness that had been lacking in her first marriage. She sang to him, read to him, and as he grew, she taught him to be gentle with the animals and honest in his dealings. The ranch prospered slowly but steadily. Owen's reputation for training exceptional horses spread throughout Wyoming and into neighboring territories. Buyers came from as far as Denver and Omaha to purchase Quinn horses, and the steady income allowed them to expand their operation. By 1883, they had 20 breeding horses, a larger house, and a hired hand to help with the daily work. Catherine's eyes, which had been so dead when Owen first saw her, now sparkled with life and contentment. She laughed often, especially when James did something amusing or when Owen told his increasingly elaborate stories at dinner. She had opinions and expressed them freely, engaged in the community, and developed friendships with neighboring ranch wives. She was confident and capable, fully present in her life in a way she had never been during her first marriage. In the summer of 1884, their daughter was born. They named her Alina, and she had Catherine's pale blue eyes and Owen's dark hair. James, now nearly 4, was enchanted with his baby sister and appointed himself her protector. The house rang with the sounds of children and laughter, and sometimes Owen would stop in the middle of his work just to absorb the reality of the life they had built. One evening in September of 1885, after the children were asleep, Owen and Catherine sat on the porch of their house watching the sun set over the mountains. 7 years had passed since that August morning when Owen had first seen Catherine on the train platform in Cheyenne. "Do you remember the day we met?" Owen asked, his arm around Catherine's shoulders. "Every detail," Catherine said. "You stopped your horse in the middle of the street to stare at me. I thought you were strange." Owen laughed. "I could not help myself. I saw someone who needed help, even if I did not know what kind of help at the time." "You saved my life," Catherine said seriously. "I was not going to end it, but I was not really living either. I was just going through motions, existing but not alive. You gave me time and space to heal. You never rushed me or demanded more than I could give. You let me find my way back to myself. You did the hard work," Owen said. "I just walked beside you." Catherine turned to look at him, and her eyes were full of love and gratitude and joy. "We walked beside each other. That is what made it possible. You were healing too from your own past. We healed together. And we built something beautiful together, Owen added, gesturing to the ranch spread out before them, to the house behind them where their children slept. More beautiful than I ever dreamed possible, Catherine agreed. When I got on that train in Philadelphia, I thought my life was over. I thought I would spend whatever years I had left just surviving, just getting by. I never imagined I could have this, could feel this much happiness. Your eyes, Owen said softly. That first day they were so empty, so dead. It was like looking at someone who was not really there anymore. Watching them come back to life, watching that spark return bit by bit, that was the most incredible thing I have ever witnessed. Catherine smiled. The spark returned because you believed it was still there, even when I could not feel it. You saw something in me worth saving when I could not see anything worth saving at all. I saw the truth, Owen said. I saw a survivor, a fighter, someone who had been knocked down but not destroyed. I saw the woman you were meant to be underneath all the pain. And now here we are, Catherine said, leaning her head against his shoulder. 7 years later with 2 beautiful children, a successful ranch and more happiness than I knew existed. Sometimes I am afraid I will wake up and find out it was all a dream. It is not a dream, Owen assured her. It is real, solid, built on our work and our love, and it is only going to get better. They sat together as the stars came out, talking about their plans for the future. They wanted more children if they were blessed with them. They wanted to expand the ranch further. They wanted to travel someday to show their children the world beyond Wyoming. They wanted to grow old together, to watch their children have children, to build a legacy of love and respect that would last for generations. The years that followed were full and rich. In 1887, Catherine gave birth to their 3rd child, another son they named Thomas. The children grew strong and healthy, learning the ranch work alongside their studies. Catherine taught them reading and arithmetic at the kitchen table, while Owen taught them horsemanship and the value of hard work. The Quinn Ranch became one of the most respected operations in the territory, known not just for quality horses but for fair dealing and integrity. In 1890, Wyoming achieved statehood, and Owen and Catherine celebrated with their neighbors at a grand dance in Cheyenne. As they waltzed together in the crowded hall, both of them older now, with threads of gray in their hair and lines around their eyes from years of sun and laughter, Catherine said, "Do you remember teaching me to trust again, teaching me that not all men were like my first husband?" "I remember teaching you about horses," Owen said with a grin. "The rest you figured out yourself." "The rest you showed me by example," Catherine corrected. "Every single day, through your actions and your words, you showed me what real love looks like, what partnership looks like, what respect looks like. You gave me back myself, Owen. You gave me back my life." "We gave each other our lives," Owen said. "I was lost too, remember, drifting and unable to connect. You gave me purpose and partnership and love. You gave me a reason to put down roots and build something lasting." As the years continued to pass, the Quinn family became a fixture in the community. Their children grew and eventually started families of their own. James took over much of the ranch operation, showing the same patience and skill with horses that Owen had demonstrated. Eleanor married a neighboring rancher's son, and Thomas studied law, eventually becoming a judge in Cheyenne. Owen and Catherine grew older together with grace and gratitude. They took pleasure in their grandchildren, in the success of their children, in the continuation of the ranch they had built from nothing. On quiet evenings, they still sat on their porch and watched the sunsets, holding hands and remembering the journey that had brought them to this place. In the summer of 1908, on their 29th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a celebration. A photographer came from Cheyenne to take a family portrait, and the resulting image showed 3 generations of Quinns, all gathered around Owen and Catherine, who sat in the center, their hands clasped together. What struck everyone who saw the photograph was Catherine's eyes. They blazed with life and joy, sparkling with intelligence and love and contentment. There was no trace of the dead, hollow look that had defined her when she first arrived in Wyoming 30 years earlier. The spark had not just returned. It had become a steady flame that had illuminated her entire life and touched everyone around her. That evening, after the guests had departed and the house had quieted, Owen and Catherine walked through their ranch one more time. They visited the barn where so many horses had been born and trained. They stopped by the corrals where Catherine had first learned to trust again, both the horses and herself. They stood by the fence line and looked out over the land they had worked and loved for 3 decades. No regrets. Owen asked, though he knew the answer. "Not a single one," Catherine said firmly. "Well, perhaps one. I wish I had met you first before everything else. I wish I had not wasted those years in darkness." "They were not wasted," Owen said. "They brought you here. They made you who you are. And who you are is extraordinary." Catherine turned to face him fully, cupping his weathered face in her hands. "I love you, Owen Quinn. I have loved you since that first winter when you stood in the corral and told me that every living thing has the capacity to heal. You believed it so completely that I had no choice but to believe it too. And you were right." "I love you, Catherine Quinn," Owen replied. "I loved you when your eyes were empty, and I love you now when they are full of life. I loved you through every stage of healing and growing and becoming. And I will love you until my last breath and beyond." They kissed there in the gathering twilight, 2 people who had found each other when they both desperately needed to be found, who had healed each other through patience and time and genuine love. Behind them, their house glowed with lamplight, filled with the evidence of the life they had built together. Photographs and children's drawings, well-worn furniture and beloved books, the accumulation of 3 decades of shared joy and shared work. The ranch spread around them, prosperous and peaceful, a testament to their vision and labor. The horses moved quietly in the pastures, descendants of those first animals they had gentled and bred. The mountains stood eternal in the distance, the same mountains Catherine had stared at with dead eyes 30 years ago, the same mountains she now viewed with profound appreciation and love. Catherine's eyes, once so empty, now shone with the light of a fully lived life, a life reclaimed from darkness and built on foundations of respect and love and partnership. The spark had returned, slowly at first, then growing steadily brighter with each passing year. It had been worth the wait, worth the patience, worth the faith that broken things could be made whole again. As they walked back to their house together, hand in hand, they passed the small cabin that had been Catherine's first home on the ranch. It was used for storage now, but sometimes Catherine went inside just to remember the woman she had been, hollow and lost, to remember the journey of healing that had brought her from that darkness into the light. To remember that she had survived, had healed, had built something beautiful from ruins. The stars came out above them, bright and countless in the Wyoming sky. Somewhere in the house, a grandchild laughed. Somewhere in the barn, a horse nickered softly. And Owen and Catherine Quinn, who had found each other when they both needed finding, walked together into the warmth and light of their home, grateful for every moment, grateful for every hard-won joy, grateful for the patient love that had made all of it possible. The spark in Catherine's eyes would never dim again. It had been rekindled by time, by patience, by genuine care, and by the transformative power of real love. And it would burn brightly for all the years to come, a beacon of hope and healing, a testament to the truth that no one is ever too broken to be made whole again, that love can indeed heal even the deepest wounds, and that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with two lost souls who find their way home to each other.